Hey y'all, welcome back to Smell the Roses, where we slow down, check in with ourselves, and call a thing a thing. While you're vibing in the garden with me, please like the video, leave a rosebud emoji, or leave a comment in the comment section to share your opinion. Subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell for your weekly dose of growth. Hey y'all. I'm trying something new with the channel, and so bear with me as I learn StreamYard and all of these cool things that I want to try. The title of today's video is going to be Cassie Ventura, her escort, her drugs, her $20 million shadow. But this is going to be a part of a new series on my channel called Thorns and Testimonies. And this will be geared towards situations like the P. Diddy case, where after things have been sorted out, we kind of do a hot wash over what we've learned from the case and how we're going to move forward in society when we hear these things, right? So, as you all know, Cassie and Diddy, or Cassie sued Diddy. Cassie and Diddy were in a relationship for like 12 or 13 years. They got out of the relationship. Cassie got with someone else and married him, had a couple of babies, decided to sue P. Diddy for things that had happened in their relationship, right? And when she sued Diddy, she sued him. She ended up walking away with $20 million. And now a male escort says that she was part of the abuse that was detailed in the P. Diddy trial. Okay. And he says that he's got receipts. And in those receipts, he says that he can allegedly prove coercion, secret abortions, and STDs. So I did a live about a month ago where I asked, is Cassie a victim? Is she a villain? Or is she both? I would love to hear what you all think. Please let me know in the comment section. But we're going to watch a video posted on YouTube from Poetik Flaco. I'll be sure to leave a link to this video and the content creator in the description box. Okay. He is about to basically lay out the escort's complaint against Cassie. So I'm going to let you know now that it might be a little confusing because his name is Clayton Howard. But during the P. Diddy trial, I believe that they referred to him as Dave. Okay. So Mr. Howard, known as Dave in the lawsuit, claims he was hired by P. Diddy and Cassie from 2009 to 2017. And he was hired to participate in those freak offs that we know about. Okay. And he's alleging that, he was drugged and that he was given an STD, and that while he was forced to perform this duty that Cassie and Diddy hired him for, between these years of 2009 and 2017, he says that he was given an STD and that also Cassie got pregnant by him and had an abortion. Okay. Now I'm going to let Poetik Flaco lay this out much better than I can for us, and then I'll chime in to discuss the current legal status and maybe why Cassie could even be liable for this. Okay, but remember, she walked away with that $20 million. Okay, and she ended up testifying in court during a federal case, naming all of these parties. Okay, so let's watch.
Cassie just received the worst possible news she could have ever gotten. And this is coming days after Diddy was acquitted on charges accusing him of trafficking her. This new development could bankrupt Cassie and take away all $30 million that she received for being a victim of Diddy. Back in 2024, when the feds were investigating Diddy for racketeering, trafficking, among other charges, they had a conversation with Cassie. Cassie was cooperative, and the feds asked Cassie to give them a list of names of the male escorts that her and Diddy had freak offs with. Cassie gave the feds a bunch of names. A lot of the names that Cassie gave was brought up at trial, and some of them was called to testify, one of them being the Punisher. And all the escorts that were called to testify during the Diddy trial, they all testified that Cassie was who booked them and Cassie was who paid them. One escort in particular, Clayton Howard, he took it beyond Cassie just booking him. See, Clayton has a great deal of resentment for Cassie because he feels like Cassie involved him in something by giving his name to the feds that he didn't want to be involved in. So when he spoke to the feds, he went out of his way to notify the feds that he believed that Cassie was a co-conspirator, that Cassie was just as bad as Diddy, and that Cassie used Diddy power to torment the lives of other people.
One, I was in an economic position where I really needed the money. Two, Mr. Combs is incredibly powerful, and Miss Ventura had no problem ending her use of that power, which has actually been revealed now because we've heard recordings of her threatening people. We've seen text messages. There are many different sides to people, and even Cassie is a normal individual. She has herself. There's a side to her that people don't know, the side that manipulated Sean Combs' power, the side that embraced his power and his position to do things that she wanted. So I was always afraid if I stopped coming, then I would start having problems because she threatened me several times to come and made me feel uncomfortable that I would come to see her just to avoid any problem with Sean Combs. He's incredibly powerful. He has people that could follow me around, damaging my life for years, and it would cost him nothing to do it. So I want to say I continued in the situation, but not as much. There was many times that I did stall them, flake on them as the word goes, and not show up. But I kept the relationship strong enough that they never thought I was trying to turn on them or betray their secret.
Obviously, because he feels this way and has these opinions on Cassie, he was never called to testify because it don't look great for your case as a prosecutor to say that Diddy trafficked Cassie when this man is saying that Cassie was just as bad as Diddy in his dealings with Diddy and Cassie. So he was never called to testify. He was brought up in trial. They say that him and Cassie was involved at the Four Seasons, but his testimony, his statements made to the feds was never brought up at trial. He wanted to testify because he had plans on outing Cassie before the trial and during the trial, but the feds did not allow it. Now, here's where things begin to get very tricky, and we begin to witness some foul play at work here. See, his lawyer was Tyrone Blackburn, the same lawyer who represents Lil Rod. Lil Rod.
This is Tyrone Blackburn. I had never seen him before just now, but I've heard his name so many times because I secretly indulge in watching Tisa Tells. Don't tell Fawcett Media. But I do occasionally watch Tisa Tells, so I know this name from her, but I never saw a picture of his face. So very interesting that he is the attorney that put out all these lawsuits. Okay, and that is representing Little Rod. I didn't know that was how you would show up to court either, Little Rod. Like, yeah, but okay, let's not go down that rabbit hole and stick to the topic, right? Yeah, okay.
I was one of the first people who sued Diddy. The feds actually used Lil Rod's lawsuit against Diddy to help structure this RICO case. So the feds was working with Tyrone Blackburn to make sure that his client Clayton Howard don't come out during the trial and don't speak out against Cassie and stays quiet until this trial is over. So Tyrone Blackburn was giving Clayton Howard the runaround when Clayton Howard was telling Tyrone he was ready to file a lawsuit against Cassie while the trial was going on.
I have been trying to file litigation for this matter against Sean Combs and Cassie since I want to say March of 2024, maybe February. But I was represented by Tyrone Blackburn. And Tyrone Blackburn has a substantial amount of litigation against Sean Combs that the conviction of Sean Combs was dependent on him winning a lot of his civil cases. My attorney intentionally held the filing back to protect the credibility of Cassie. Tyrone Blackburn, he intentionally held it back. I have numerous communications to him where I am directly informing him to file. He would talk to the prosecutors and then he would duck me for weeks and not file the lawsuit. So this is why it was never filed.
Tyrone also represented Lil Rod and other people. So on top of the feds pressuring him to not blow this and to not allow this guy to file litigation against Cassie before the trial is over, he is also incentivized for a guilty verdict to come for Diddy, because he wants, for this guilty verdict to be in place, so then he could take this guilty verdict, take it to a civil court, and get a lot of money for his other victims who were involved with Diddy. So Tyrone Blackburn was also incentivized for him not to sue Cassie as well, because once you put Cassie's credibility at question, that right there is the foundation of this entire RICO against Diddy. When Cassie falls, the case falls. And also, too, if the defense attorney gets wind that this dude is trying to sue Cassie, they would just call him in as a witness and have him testify to everything he's telling TMZ right now. So Clayton eventually realizes Tyrone is stalling him, so that he fires Tyrone and files the lawsuit eventually. His lawsuit is predicated on the Adult Survivors Act and also the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act, where he will list Diddy and Cassie as co-conspirators. Here's where Cassie may be in trouble. So the law allowed human trafficking victims with a right to sue those responsible for their trafficking. However, even if the courts find that Cassie, isn't directly responsible for this dude being trafficked, it was expanded in 2008 to specifically include trafficking survivors and allow victims to sue anyone who knowingly benefited financially or by receiving anything of value from the trafficking crimes committed against them. This can include the buyer of the Commercial Sex Act. Diddy was found not guilty in criminal court of trafficking Cassie. The court listed Cassie as an equal participator in this. And if Cassie was the one who was paying these dues, she was the one who executed the transaction. She paid for the Commercial Sex Acts. But beyond that, if they don't want to give her, she paid for the Commercial Sex Act, she undoubtedly benefited from this. She testified in court that Diddy gave her gifts. Diddy rewarded her. Diddy paid for her home. Diddy bought her expensive trips because she would engage in these free calls. That came with a $500,000 trip at Chanel. That came with cars. That came with houses. So undoubtedly here, Cassie is culpable in some way. And if you're Cassie and you're the public recipient of $30 million due to being the victim of Diddy, now you have a lot of people who is looking at that $30 million and thinking, I want a portion of that pie. Clayton Howard is just the first. If he is successful, trust and believe, bro, the hundreds of men that were involved in these free calls, they're coming out the woodworks too. And Cassie is now about to see herself in a situation like Diddy. Once one person sue, the entire army is coming, bro. The entire village want to cut. But I was able to recover Clayton Howard's lawsuit, and we're going to go through exactly what accusations he's making against Cassie. He accused Cassie of trafficking him for commercial sex purposes, luring him with promises of gifts and favors, transporting him across state lines for prolonged sexual encounters. She allegedly held him for days using coercion and fraud to keep him under control. She pressured and threatened Howard to make himself available for these encounters, using financial compensation and isolation tactics to ensure compliance. Now, she would apparently withhold his clothing and phone so he wouldn't leave and he would stay for these prolonged encounters. If you closed your eyes as I read that, you would have probably almost thought like I was reading a lawsuit from Cassie to Diddy. Because what he is accusing Cassie of is exactly what Cassie is accusing Diddy of. He will lay claim that he was drugged and manipulated by Cassie, and even claiming that Cassie admitted to drugging him. So Ventura allegedly drugged Howard Clayton with controlled substances, including MDMA, at triple the doses she consumed to lower his inhibitions and facilitate sexual exploitation. She admitted to drugging him after he confronted her about an incident that left him disoriented and ill. She provided Howard with substances like ecstasy and marijuana to keep him awake and compliant during encounters, manipulating him into continued participation. The argument that a lot of people will have that if this is true is that Cassie was acting on behalf of Diddy. Cassie was just doing things to make sure that Diddy enjoyed himself, and she was just carrying out acts or favors for Diddy. But then we have to go back to the racketeering and to the RICO that Diddy was charged with. if it's a criminal organization, then there are people under that organization who did things. The reason why Diddy had no co-conspirators was because the co-conspirator was also the alleged victim. So if Cassie was doing these things on behalf of Diddy or at the direction of Diddy, that don't make her any less responsible. She's still
Right.
responsible for doing these things to someone
Yeah.
if these things are true. When I got to this part of the lawsuit, I fell out my chair. I would think that if I'm like an escort and I'm dealing with Cassie and Diddy, the least of my worries is I could catch something. These people are extremely wealthy at the top echelon of society. I don't think they would be carrying STDs around, but apparently I was wrong. Because according to Clayton Howard, Ventura initiated and insisted on unprotected sexual contact, disregarded Howard's safety, which led him to contracting chlamydia from her. When she was in court, Cassie did say that like she had like extreme like infections that like it would go like weeks.
Listen, I I empathize with this young lady when it comes to the video and the domestic abuse. So if he was going to be on trial for that, by all means, pin his balls to the wall, okay? But you are burning men who are you are hiring for sex. You know, whether you know, at some point you have to be liable for what you did to someone else. Like, if you are threatening me and you tell me, Raquel, you have to go pow pow that woman, or I'm going to pow pow you. I am not justified just because I'm afraid for my life. I don't get to save my life by taking someone else's life. So I feel like this is the same thing. You don't get to call him the big bad wolf without also calling her the big bad wolf, because she was the one allegedly that burned this guy, you know? He's also going to go on to say that he got her pregnant. And I mean, it's not far fetched to believe that these people would be contracting diseases and getting pregnant if they're having all of this sex under all of these drugs all of the time. I'm just, I don't know, y'all. Y'all tell me, like, does this make sense to you? Like, you know, would it's a very risky lifestyle to indulge in, but she was an active participant in it, you know. If this is something that you really truly didn't want to do, then you would have given up all of the shopping sprees, the cars, and the houses. But it wasn't what you probably didn't want to do it, but you were cool with doing it because it afforded you those things I just ran off. This is a conundrum. And now everybody knows you have $30 million on top of you going into court and naming all of the unusual suspects. And you don't think these unusual suspects are going to come after your coin? That was silly. That was silly. I don't understand why you needed to, you know, get your $30 million, Cassie, but then also go to court and testify on behalf of the feds. Because this has kicked up another shitstorm for you to have to survive. And having these kinds of details about your past constantly leaked and then corroborated by other complaints by other males about like your filthy, trashy lifestyle. You know, like I said, you know, if any of my little girls are in your little girls' classrooms and, you know, there's a birthday party coming up, I don't see you and your baby girls being on that invite list, because nobody wants to be around this kind of filthy, trashy behavior. If I was a woman, I'd be wondering if you're angling at getting my husband into a freak off because you're always ready for one. I don't know. Like, it just makes me very mad. You know, I put my son into these situations. I hope to God he never has to. sell his body for money. But good Lord.
Her vagina will still be hurting, and that Diddy won't care. He will try to get it cured up quickly so he could get back to a freak off. So she already admitted in court that she would have these like infections so bad that after a while, like the medication was no longer working, and like that's how frequently she was getting these infections. Now she later admitted, according to him, to contracting the STD and blamed Diddy's infidelity, showing reckless regard for Clayton's health. Her action resulted, now this is where it gets a little messy, okay? Now he's claiming that he got her pregnant, and he's claiming that she aborted the pregnancy without informing him until later, continuing to demand unprotected sex. Now listen, bro, this is just trifling. Now you really can't sue someone for terminating your baby, especially not in the US. But yo, that just goes to show like how reckless Cassie was, specifically for her own personal autonomy. You reckless, bro. You getting pregnant, like you're not on birth. Like, bro, what's going on? I would think, bro, yo, if Diddy had numerous men busting loads in you, bro, like you would at least, I don't know, bro, get the tubes tied, get birth control, something, man. But you getting pregnant, STDs allegedly, my God. According to him, Cassie will record him in compromising positions without his consent, using these recordings for her and Diddy's mutual gratification. When confronted, she justified the recordings by demonstrating her enjoyment of them, further manipulating Howard. Because there were times, by the way, where like Cassie and the escorts would do things by themselves when Diddy couldn't make it, and she would record it, I guess. Now, deception and false pretenses. Ventura concealed her identity by using the alias Jackie Star and misrepresented her relationship with Combs, claiming they were married to entice Howard into sexual encounters. In court, Cassie would testify that Diddy made her do it unprotected. However, in this lawsuit, this is why we begin to see why they didn't want this man on that stand, because he testified she lied to Diddy about reviewing Clayton's STD results to justify unprotected egg, pressuring Howard to continue despite his objections. Diddy was just convicted for transporting Cassie to engage in a freak-off, violating the Man's Act. So if Cassie transported these dudes to engage in a freak-off, then she violated the Man's Act too. Now, a lot of people in this country, well, the majority probably thinks Cassie is a victim in this trafficking scenario. Now, Cassie was a victim of domestic violence, 100%, no doubt. We witnessed it firsthand. But a lot of other people do believe that Cassie was also a victim of trafficking. So when he filed his lawsuit against Cassie, the people who believe that Cassie is a victim of trafficking, they've been really hard on this dude. I mean, they've been doxing him. They've been attacking him online, calling him a bum. So he made a video speaking up for himself, and here's what he had to say.
So good morning. I am Dave, the man who has just sued Cassandra Ventura for damages involved in the Sean Combs sex trafficking trial. And I'm looking through social media, and I see a lot of the women out there, particularly Black women like myself, who choose to victim shame me and try to do everything they can to discredit me, because the truth is that the loss of the Sean Combs trial was a loss to the Me Too movement and to hating women like the women who are trying to insult me. So let me tell you something, you women out there who would like to insult me. This is my story. I was paid by Cassie, Cassandra Ventura, for 8 years to be her male provider. I didn't have to be the best looking guy. I was the best in bed. And because I was the best in bed, guess what? I was given this arrangement. I was coerced. I was drugged. I was manipulated with promises of money and gifts for over a period of 8 years to continue to be this woman's provider at her expense and at the expense of Diddy. Now, at the time, legally, I didn't know my rights as well as I do now. I didn't create this conflict with Cassandra Ventura. She created it with me. She's the one who decided to bring up things that happened over 10 to 15 years ago to hold Sean Combs accountable for what was a partial truth. She's the person who introduced me to the U.S. Attorney's Office. She's the person who told the U.S. Attorney's Office about our relationship. So in essence, those out there who want to hate on me, who want to say that I'm attacking Cassie, you should realize the truth, that Cassandra Ventura, your idol, did this to herself. She exposed herself to liability when she got on the stand and decided to mention me as the male escort who was with her when she overdosed and Diddy made her have sex with him. That was a lie, people. Cassie had just woke up from sleeping 8 hours. Myself and Sean Combs were exhausted. We wanted to go home. Cassie's the one who forced that sexual encounter. People, she tells you that Sean Combs made her have sex on her menstrual cycle. I can't speak for anyone else but myself. But I know the one time that did happen, that Sean Combs was not responsible for that. That Cassie, in a drunken, intoxicated, hormonally imbalanced state due to her period, manipulated and forced herself on me during her menstrual cycle. And what I mean by that is I had no knowledge she was on her menstrual cycle because the room was completely dark. She manipulated the room.
Imagine doing some freaky things when you were younger to make some extra cash, but then you grew up and you moved on. You became a social activist. You're now protesting against the police, protesting political causes. And then you look up and your name is being listed in the biggest case, probably in like the modern era, listing you as a male escort, listing all the nasty things you did for money 10, 20 years ago. I think you'll be upset too, and you'll probably have a vendetta against the person who brought this upon your life. You'll probably hate the person who dug everything up and brought you right back into this when you were trying to move on. Because you can find multiple videos about him protesting the police, protesting against the police, like protesting police brutality. So it looks like he was trying to be at least an activist or at least get into politics, but now those prospects is over with, bro. Can you imagine voting for a mayor who was raw dogging Cassie in front of Diddy? Like, cut it out, bro. Like, that day is over with. Like, those days is done for. So, listen, man, I don't know.
I don't know either, y'all. I don't know either. I'm just kind of like, what in the hell? Okay. Oh, so you know what? Why could Cassie be liable? Okay. It's just bottom line. These allegations of intentional harm, of giving somebody an STD and terminating a pregnancy without consent are serious alleged harms to someone. Okay. Mainly, when you're like, well, why can she get in trouble for, the abortion or whatever? Well, it's because she was kind of like having this man continuously have sex with her without protection. I'm sure that that is stressful to know that you have to perform this duty for money, and then you could potentially get this woman pregnant, and then now this lady is going to abort your baby. Imagine over time the psychological damage of you knowing that you're bringing forth life only to see it be harmed later. Women get, they have these procedures done to themselves all the time, and even they sometimes walk away with regret and talk about how horrible or traumatic that experience is to them and their minds. Okay. And then basically the baby resulted in sex that was kind of like coerced, like stay for the drugs, stay for the money, let me hold your phone, let me hide your clothes. These are all things that he alleged, but these are things that she could be liable for. Okay. And then basically he's saying that she manipulated and exploited him for sex. And that is the same thing that she alleged P. Diddy did to her. And that is something, again, being that she has this $30 million and he's taking her to civil court, he wants some of this money. He alleges that he was a victim of her as well as Diddy. Okay. So what's next for you, girl? What's next for you, Cassie? You're going to have to defend yourself in court, girl. You're going to have to get up there and speak to all of these egregious things that this man ran off in court in a document. You're going to have to speak to all of that. And there could be a very large, civil damages award. You're going to have to pay him the same way Diddy paid you. You're probably not going to have to pay him $20 million, but girlfriend, you're going to have to come up off some of that coin. I'm pretty sure this is not just going to go away. Either he's going to dismiss it because they settled out of court, or she's going to let this go to court and she could possibly stand to lose that complete $20 million she just gained from Puff Daddy or P. Diddy. And, you know, the only way he's going to have to be able to prove it, which, you know, if I was somebody that was messing with P. Diddy for umpteen million years, I'm pretty sure he has old cell phones with pictures and videos and text messages. I'm pretty sure that if he knew anything about the pregnancy or they discussed anything about the STD, it's all in text messages and can be corroborated with medical records, eyewitnesses. Maybe he brought a friend along to the freak off. Like, there's all kinds of stuff that you need to be getting ready for, Cassie, because this is like not going away. Now people are doxing him. Now he's not going to be able to go on with the rest of his life as he was trying to do, move past his salacious past. He was trying to move past his salacious past, but you drug his ass right back into the trenches. So now you're going to have to deal with this gutter bug. Yeah. Bottom line, Clayton Howard, or Mr. Dave, is alleging he had a traumatic experience that was drug-fueled and facilitated and orchestrated by Cassie, which, if backed by proof, which is kind of already come out in court, that she paid for these things, that she contacted these men and made the arrangements, this all could result in a substantial liability. And given the seriousness of what this man is saying, of the physical, emotional, and then the financial harms that he's claiming, and how Cassie is alleged to be the active participant, a court judgment could make her pay significantly to Dave. So we'll probably be talking about this again. Like I said, this is going to be a new podcast to the channel, but I won't be speaking on things prematurely. We'll be waiting for, you know, court filings and court procedures to go through their course before we start chiming in, because it's good to have proof and evidence when we're talking about such salacious topics that affect people in such adverse ways. Okay, so the next steps will be court filings, and maybe even Cassie's legal team is going to put out some kind of statement to combat what Mr. Howard said in his TikToks and in his court documents, and possibly a settlement. You know, Clayton is accusing her of some serious wrongdoing. And I just don't think that this is going to be something that's going to be easily swept under the carpet. So this is going to be something that's going to be a thorn in Cassandra's ass until she settles, or this mysteriously goes away and we never hear about it again. I love to hear what you all think. Drop a rosebud in the comments or leave your opinion. I'll get back at you. Until we meet again in the next video, you all be safe and love each other, rosebuds. Bye-bye.